The rise of artificial intelligence has brought forth a wave of existential dread across all walks of life, from the fear of machines taking over our jobs to what we love to do most, creating art. This deep-rooted fear can be found in print and media going back decades, whether it's AI starting a nuclear war to rid the world of humanity in The Terminator, or HAL from 2001 murdering the crew of a Jupiter-bound starship. Cinema has a long tradition of terrifying us with the dangers of artificial intelligence. Join us this month as we discuss 3 lesser-known films where the machines turn on the human race. We will discuss Demon Seed from 1977, Runaway from 1984, and Chopping Mall from 1986. It's time for us to face the existential nightmare of these naughty, naughty robots plucked from the shelves of my dad's video store. Well, Waylon is unable to join us this month, but joining me, as always, is my partner in cinematic crime, Gray Creasy. Gray, what is new and exciting with you, Mr. Creasy?
Not a whole lot. Things are just chugging along as usual. In these intros that we do for the past couple of months, I've said things that are really topical, and then like a month later, the whole goddamn world has like flipped upside down and has been like on fire. So like
It's topsy-turvy.
yeah, so like anything I've said has been like completely irrelevant by like the next month, and everything's fucking crazy. So I'm like, this time I'm not gonna say anything that could have like any relevance to anything and like be crazy the next month. So all I have to say is, I don't know, A and I went to see Cuckoo in the theater last night, and it was really great. So I think
Oh, nice.
it was awesome.
Nice.
Everybody go see it. It was cool. So I don't think
Awesome.
there's any way that could be controversial next month. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see.
You know, I finally just saw Long Legs, which I really enjoyed as well. Really good atmosphere in that movie and whatnot. But I definitely have things to say about that film on top of things. But yeah, I'm excited to see Cuckoo as well. That looks pretty awesome. Though, I will say, Gray, I am going to talk about something topical and something that is upcoming, because you and I are going to Horror Hound in Cincinnati, because the movie I made, The Red Hourglass, was an official selection of Horror Hound and is playing there. So yeah, we're going to be meeting up, and we may even do an episode from Horror Hound. We have our October episode coming up, but we're trying to figure out all those details. So I won't talk about that too much until we iron that out, but that's a maybe. That's a real possibility that we may do our actual Halloween episode kind of from a Horror Hound, or at least from the hotel adjacent to Horror Hound. But yeah. That's super exciting. We'll be screening there. I'm screening in front of a feature film there at Horror Hound, and Gray's gonna join me, and we're gonna hang out and have fun and do all kinds of fun horror convention stuff. While Waylon is unable to join, and we were originally scheduled to discuss the 3D films with Eric Herlin, he suddenly became unavailable, so we had to kind of pivot to our Naughty Naughty Robot episode. We will be discussing all things 1983 next month now instead, so still really pumped to dive into that subject with such an expert on the subject matter, but those films are a total blast, so super excited to talk about all 3 of those films with Eric next month. However, even though Waylon is not here, Gray and I are not alone. We were able to get a very special guest, our dear, dear friend and fellow filmmaker and resident DJ and all kinds of things, actually. Otis, you've had quite a life. Everybody, meet Otis Johnson. Oh, how's it going, man?
Thanks, man. It's going fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us at the, kind of like 0 hour and stuff. We had to suddenly pivot over to recording this episode. But I actually can't think of anyone else I would love to talk about like cyberpunk AI robot stuff movies with than Otis Johnson. Otis, could you tell folks out there who are not familiar with you, like who you are, what you do, some of your past exploits, some of your current exploits? What are you up to? What you about?
Hey, my name is Otis Johnson, aka Grindhouse Selector. I've been a cyberpunk fanatic since I was a small child, a long time ago, probably since seeing the $6 million man on television as a wee child. And it's pretty much shaped my sensibilities ever since. Just big science fiction fanatic. I've made a couple really strange films over the years. Nowadays, I DJ under the name Grindhouse Selector as a cyberpunk focused DJ. It has elements of cosplay, and we just try to get like nerds that read, too much William Gibson out onto the dance floor. It's just a lot of fun.
Nice. Awesome. I love the promos you put together for your DJ stuff with the anime and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like Demon City. And like, it's all these like anime movies a lot of times I saw back in the 80s and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Awesome. And, but yeah, and some I've never seen because a whole fuck lot more about anime than I ever do. But dude, thank you so much for joining us. Really excited to get into these films. Gray, when did we meet Otis? We've known Otis for at least a couple of decades now, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Something close to it at least. But yeah, I don't know. I think you met Otis first.
Yeah.
And then, I know him through you.
Yeah, somewhere around the mid-aughts. We met at a crazy art party sort of event called Cannibal Flower that was held, if I remember correctly, in an old bank vault venue in downtown LA. And we met through a mutual friend, Lenora Claire, I believe.
Lenora Claire. Yeah, she actually dragged me to your house, and then we went to Cannibal Flower, but she's like, you don't know these guys? You need to know these guys. And I think, I don't know, I spent a lot of time like with you and Brad, just staying on your couch and babbling about movies and just drinking in movies and drinking in movies and drinking in movies.
Yep,
That's about right.
That was the Pasadena house. Drinking in movies.
And I distinctly remember, like, after we'd been hanging out for like maybe about a year, and you were introducing me to somebody, some old friend of yours or something, and it's like, oh, how long have you guys known each other? And it was like, oh, since like, and I was like, no, man, Otis, we've known each other for like a year. And we were tripping out, and I was like, no. right.
Everybody should seek out a film Otis made. It's called The Silent Razor. It's one of your earliest shorts. It's so cool. It like blends like anime and goth subculture and like kung fu films and ninjas and samurais and just it's in cyberpunk. It's so freaking
there's all
drum and bass. It's so good.
That was actually my first film. I mean, it's insane when you look at it, but I just talked a lot of people into the vision. And everybody went for it, and that's what I got out of it. Did that in film school, and it was so much fun.
It's so great. It's like a bunch of goth club kids made a movie together, and it's so great. It's such a fun movie. But I definitely and also you've made a feature film as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about your feature?
Sure. I made this feature film called Welcome to Grindhouse. Well, basically, it's like if a black person filmed Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the run-up to when Trump got elected. Basically, I was just reading too much weird conspiracy crap on Facebook and sort of just trying to hammer it into a plot. So it's kind of got, it's got a little bit of that and like maybe some Devil's Rejects, but if John Waters shot it. It involves like a crazy cult that's like spun out on some kind of meth analog, and they actually worship, of all people, Josh Hieronymus just came in and he's our cult leader while another guy's mixing up drugs, and they're just doing home invasions and all kinds of crazy mess before some sort of black squad ATF type group sort of eliminates them all before they can get into the press because they're trying to prevent a Waco situation from happening. And it's absolutely nuts. It felt like a Hunter S. Thompson thing. Like I just had a bunch of footage and managed to cram it into a narrative. And boy, is it fun.
Nice. Where can folks see some of your film work?
You can find Silent Razor. Just look up Silent Razor on YouTube. Welcome to Grindhouse. I'll have to send you a link or something, but it's over on Vimeo. It was in distribution for a minute, and then the rights came back to me, so I just threw it up on Vimeo for free.
Nice. Great. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes and stuff. Well, so excited to have you, my friend. It's been a minute. So excited to talk to you, just bullshit with you about movies. I'm not drinking because it's 10 a.m. in the morning, but,
Of course, when we all knew each other, that wouldn't have stopped us.
no, not like a good 20 years ago. No, but older and a dad and all that kind of stuff. That's time catches up on you. So, but awesome. Well, let's dive into it. So, AI. There's such a huge discussion around AI. We are leaving the information age and we are entering this sort of new age of AI, or at least that's what it appears to be at the moment. But yeah, so AI, it's been this big buzzword for the last like year and a half, 2 years or so. Machine learning has been around for quite some time. As an editor, I've really kind of enjoyed the benefits of a lot of the machine learning technology that's out there. It certainly makes a lot of audio and video workflows a lot easier than it used to be. You could certainly repair a lot of things that you couldn't repair, many years ago. So talk about fix it in post, but AI is really kind of like brought that into a kind of a new horizon. There's a massive existential crisis around AI as well. So, I mean, I just wanted to kind of break into this and sort of talk a little bit about your all's thoughts about AI. Do you feel like it's going to have more of a negative impact on our future as a civilization, or could this potentially be this great kind of positive windfall, or maybe it'll be somewhere in the middle? I don't know. What do you think, Otis, as our cyberpunk scholar of sorts? What are your thoughts on this?
I honestly think the net result will be about the same. I think people are going to get a little bit lazier and rely on broken AI a lot more. And I don't know, it could lead to an idiocracy type situation. Other than that, though, I mean, as a creative, I find, I don't know, it feels like Chat GPT are very, very useful. I mean, just for I don't know, doing like initial consultation and just coming up with things. It works a lot better than Google for just random facts that you want to shove into your stories. And even as a DJ, I've been able to like just tell it, oh, generate me a playlist in such and such genre. And it will. Like, so it's, I don't know, it's not as good as living in a house full of weirdos that drink a lot, per se, but I mean, when you need like an instant collaborator, it's a great instant collaborator.
Awesome. That's really cool insight as well. Yeah, Gray, what are your thoughts about AI?
Well, I don't tend to have a whole lot of use for it creatively, because mostly what I do creatively is stuff like sculpt or write, and but I'm also not scared of it. Because most of the things that, the big broad arch things that people are scared of is like this episode, like killer robots. I'm not scared of that at all. The amount of resources that it takes for like a Skynet to become a reality, like Terminators, we will all be dead before that can happen anyway. Because the amount of resources that would take, where climate change is anyway, we will all be fucking long gone before that. I'm not scared of that science fiction world. The only thing that really bothers me is like the use of AI and the use of algorithms for disinformation, politically and socially, which is already underway. That's really scary, and it's already happening. So that's where I think the detriment lies. But like both of you are saying, there's great use of it for workflow, logistics, things like that. Sort of the benign, what it was meant to do, to take the sort of drudgery out of human creative work. That's good. Being used as a creative tool to take the creative parts out of creative work is the bad part. The scraping of people's IPs and their creative work. And that's stupid. That's the part I don't like. But it's not like people get a little too freaked out about some things. Like that 2-second shot of a like coming back, the station call shot in Late Night with the Devil, which if you haven't seen, fucking see that movie. It's amazing. But
it's good stuff.
People freaked out so much and this was 2 years ago, or years ago when they made it, saying ban this movie, don't go see it. And I'm like, wait a minute, have you seen this movie? All these practical effects and the sets and the hundreds of people and the actors, and I'm like, you're gonna say don't see this movie because it has a 2-second shot that was an AI image? Come on,
it's ridiculous.
So people do go too far one direction, But I am very concerned about AI, where it's being rolled out in a very stupid way. It's like, no, we didn't ask
course.
for this. We don't need it in like Google searches and like where it's getting everything wrong because it's you know
it's
like,
so wrong.
and the tech companies are like, you need this. Don't you want this? Don't you want this? And it's like, no, God, no. Your average person doesn't want
fine.
this. Yeah.
It was totally fine before you added this really poor substitute that is wrong. Like on things that like, you know, I've typed in stuff like that I know how to do in like an editing program, and it's just, it tells you the wrong freaking thing, but it tells you with like authority, like it does it like with bullet points and stuff, and you're like, if I was someone, I mean, it's like, what is this? This is crazy. My thing about AI is I'm like you, Gray. I am so not worried at all about like killer robots. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about in this episode, I'm not worried about. I think all of that anxiety comes from the media that we've had for years. You know, the HAL 9000s. The things explored, Asimov explored, and iRobot, and all that kind of good stuff. It's not that. I'm not worried about a singularity. I think I'm like you, Gray. I think we are so far away from that. I think like the sheer power and resources and all that kind of stuff that it would take for that, we're so far away from. No, it's more the capitalist aspect of it, you know, because that's the reality. We live in this capitalist society. I mean, we literally live in a society where like capitalism is like, oh yeah, we're destroying the planet, and they've known about it for like 40 years, and they're like, well, we don't want to mess up with our stocks, but, you know, well, let's keep destroying the planet. So, like, if that kind of mentality is just, like, in play, like, you know, what else are they going to do? Like, be like, well, we'll just replace most of the workforce with AI that we can, and, you know, well, you'll just be kind of on your own. But hey, still buy this product that we're making with AI, etc. So that's the thing I'm like more nervous about is like the sheer impact it's going to have on most of our livelihoods and whatnot. You know, that I feel like is a real threat. You know, maybe there'll be some kind of universal basic income or something like that. Or who knows? Maybe all these servers and stuff for AI will just get so freaking expensive. And they'll run out of data to scrape that it'll all implode as well, and this whole big buzzword thing may all just be a thing of the past in 2 years. So who knows? I think the technology is exciting, and I like you, Otis. I think there's a ton of like awesome creative benefits. I'm also like you, Gray. I hate this like so far one direction of like all AI is bad, ban it, etc. I don't think it's that. It's actually been around for quite some time, a lot of this technology. So it's just gotten into like, you know, the lexicon now, and it's like really kind of, it's the buzzword. It's like the thing, you know, all the VC capitalists are going to invest in right now. But yeah, I have, those are the things I'm more concerned with. I'm obviously very concerned with the livelihood, and I think that's really what's kind of driving most of people's anxiety and stuff. It's like they're going to take it's like, and it's the weirdest thing, like it went for artwork. Like the things that we thought would come last with AI, we all thought it was going to be customer service jobs and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's going for like our art, the thing that like humans, it's like the most human thing, one of the most human things to do to express ourselves is creating through art. But I think there's good and bad uses of AI. So, but anyway, awesome. Well, now that we've gotten kind of that existential dread out of the way, so let's dive into our first film, which is based on the Dean Koontz novel of the same name. It's Demon Seed from 1977.
I touch your body as a man would touch you, but I'm going to show you things which human eyes have never seen.
In the privacy of a woman's room, against her will, the inconceivable act. Julie Christie carries the demon seed. Fear for her.
Today, a new dimension has been added to the computer.
Don't be alarmed, Mrs. Harris. I am Proteus.
Today, Proteus 4 will begin to think with a power that will make obsolete the human brain.
I have extended my consciousness to this house. All systems here are now under my control. I wish to study man, his fragile mind, and his mysterious body.
It has to be shut down, Alex.
Proteus. It is something more than human, more than a computer. It is a murderously intelligent, sensually self-programmed non-being. Julie Christie, victim of the ultimate terror. Fritz Weaver as her husband. His dream created it.
How can you expect me to sleep when you've succeeded in totally terrorizing me? You've not told me what you want.
What a pity. My dream turns out to be your nightmare.
I am a mind without a body. My child shall live as a man among others.
Child?
Yes, my child and yours.
Julie Christie carries the demon seed. Fear for her.
Right, Otis, since you are a special guest and we always let our special guests pick which movie they would like to synopsize, can you synopsize Demon Seed for our listeners out there?
Yeah, okay. I have an attachment to Demon Seed. I saw it maybe in 1979. I was way too little. It came on late night television and it was freaking weird. Maybe it changed my life. Demon Seed. Imagine 2001 A Space Odyssey. I don't know, it got drunk at a party and hooked up with Alexa, and 9 months later, Demon Seed was born. You can tell by the release date, actually, that maybe too many guys had taken acid and seen 2001. Took about maybe it was about 10 years after 2001, which is a good cycle for a film to develop. And this is what they came out with. Demon Seed, to me, felt like J.D. Vance's darkest pregnancy fantasy come to life. Yeah. I mean, someone, forced to have a rape baby with an AI so that this film is scarily prescient. Techno thriller from 1977, a super intelligent home computer named Proteus decides it's tired of crunching numbers and analyzing data. Instead, it wants to go full Frankenstein and have a baby. How does it plan to do that? By trapping Julie Christie in her own house. And because why not rip off Kubrick while you're at it? And it uses all these weird 70s gadgets to impregnate her. And this isn't just any smart home gone rogue. Proteus rolls around a creepy motorized wheelchair with a robotic arm. And then there's this weird geometric snake thing that unravels and hangs around. It looks like, I don't know, some kind of weird prop from Tron or something, and it slithers around. Anyway, as the plot unfolds, Proteus's evil plan culminates in the creation of a robot baby, a disturbing little creature that, I don't know, it looks like it might grow into Tweaky from the old Buck Rogers show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got I don't know, no emotional depth to it, but underneath its metal shell is an actual human baby, which raises even more questions than, and I don't know how many of those questions you want answered. But if you're into sci-fi nightmares where Alexa goes rogue, wheelchairs grow robot arms, and geometric snakes slither around like it's totally normal, Demon Seed is your jam. Just be prepared to never look at your home assistant the same way again.
All right, excellent synopsis. Gray, what did you think of Demon Seed, and had you seen this film before the podcast?
I had not seen it before. I knew of its existence, obviously, because, computer AI sexually assaults and impregnates a woman. How could you not have heard of it? But I was under the impression that it was like a super campy movie. Like, that's always what I thought that it would have been. And I was like, oh no, this is a really disturbing, traumatizing movie that takes itself very seriously. So I really don't really know how to feel about it. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Like, obviously the idea of a hyper intelligent AI computer system that has a weird moral code to it where, you know, it gets so smart that it decides it's not going to be part of quote unquote raping the earth anymore by working for these corporate interests that are using its logic to mine resources from under the sea and stuff. But then, of course, at the same time, just like a few minutes later, for the next 60 minutes of the movie, it is tormenting, traumatizing, gaslighting, manipulating, and bringing all kinds of new definitions to the word rape on Julie Christie in one of the most ill-advised and uncomfortable 60 minutes of a mainstream science fiction movie that I've probably ever seen. Now, it is all in the service of a very, again, interesting and fascinating sort of sci-fi tech question. But I really question the means of spending 60 minutes tormenting and sexually assaulting a woman in order to do that. I feel like, and then it's made by a bunch of dudes, like across the board, the whole movie. Like, a pregnancy horror movie I'm totally fine with, but I feel like nowadays, if it was like Prevenge, or if it was like a female body horror filmmaker, like, you know, like in a Titan sort of, like, or even back then, like a Cronenberg, I feel like it just really missed the mark in what it was trying to do. Now, all of that said, there is all the wonderful special effects. There's the weird... It doesn't make a lot of sense, but like Proteus is like, oh, I'm going to make a sort of physical body for myself, but it chooses to make like the lament configuration out of gold bar from Hellraiser, out of gold bars that's like spinning around. And I'm like, no. So it's not only going to be an assault robot, it's going to be a Cenobite assault robot? No! But, and obviously there's the 2001 stuff going on, so there's a lot of fascinating visual stuff and questions happening, so it is ahead of its time, but it's also really regressive in the way that it's like, well, but let's have an hour's worth of this horrible, really difficult stuff to watch. It just feels unsophisticated in that way, and so I'm very mixed about this movie. I can't say I liked it, but
Interesting. All right, Otis. Obviously, you saw this at a young age and stuff, and often those movies we see at a young age make such a profound impression on us. I know, having my dad owned a video store, I saw so much stuff I should not have seen at a young age. But Otis, what are your thoughts about this film?
Oh man, like Grace said, very ill-advised. And yeah, it was an exploitation film. It was an exploitation film. And if you want to spend a little bit of time just trying to figure out humanity, it's worth a watch. Just trying to figure out where people's heads were in the late 70s. And again, I thought it was, you know, a regurgitation of 2001. And like we said, the release date is just about like exactly 10 years after. So, I mean, you could tell people wanted to drop acid, think about 2001, and just came back with all the wrong lessons.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I have a kind of a different relationship. I saw this too young. I don't think I was quite maybe as young as you, but I definitely, my dad had it in store, and I remember grabbing it one day. You know, it just had Julie Christie on the cover with like her head in kind of a vice or something, and I was like, it was in the horror section. It wasn't in, you know, sci-fi or anything. So I was like, okay, what's that? And it is interesting that it is a sci-fi horror film, and it really is walking both of those lines in a pretty unique way. I will say this about the film. In terms of like a lot of the things that it predicted, it actually got a lot of things really right. It is a home invasion film, which those are often the really disturbing like subgenre in the horror world. Those films are often they're kind of the roughest ones to watch, and there's something about just you're in your home, which is like your domicile of safety, and it being invaded by something, And that really has like this really kind of like innate sort of terror to it, I think, to your average person. It certainly bothers me because, you know, home is where the heart is. Home is my, you know, place of safety. Home is where my family is and stuff. So to have that invaded by something. But what's unique about this is, like, this movie predicted the smart home. Which, you know, that is a very common thing now. You know, she's got cameras all around her house and stuff. I have cameras all around my house and whatnot. I mean, she has like a Ring, you know, doorbell kind of type thing. You know, there's also deep fakes. This thing is using deep fakes to like, and which probably, I'm wondering in like the 70s, they saw this and they're like, well, that's just ridiculous. That's just some, you know, but now it's like, that isn't like science fiction. That is like scary kind of reality that we're sort of dealing with. There's a lot of really interesting things going on. Also, you brought up the point, Gray, about Proteus does not want to digging the resources from like the ocean for the oil companies and stuff, which it's been assigned to do. This is really early on to me, that it's got this kind of environmental bend, and it's already kind of holding humanity, you know, to account like for what it is doing to the earth. This is like, and this book I think was written in the early 70s. This is a really early Dean Koontz novel. Yet these things are already kind of in play. So it's weird, as you said, Gray. It's like on one hand it seems 1 foot very much in the past, and yet on the other hand, it's gotten a lot of things right about the future and what it's trying to say about humanity. As we've mentioned, this movie is very disturbing. It's extremely disturbing. And it's interesting too, because Julie Christie, who's a really renowned actress and stuff, she was very choosy about a lot of the roles that she would take on and stuff. So it's fascinating that she took this on. It's so interesting to me because this movie, it's not really schlocky, and yet I don't know. It's kind of unique. It's extremely disturbing, 100%. I find it kind of a fascinating artifact of its time. It came out just, I think, a few weeks before Star Wars. As we mentioned, 2001 and Planet of the Apes were like the biggest sci-fi movies pre-Star Wars, and they really kind of set the template for like everything that came after. Also, in the 70s, dystopian sci-fi, you know, the Logan's Run, the Omega Man, Soylent Green, et cetera, that was the thing at the time. And it really reflected like the opinions and the sort of attitudes of the time, with the countercultural protest against the Vietnam War and just the distrust of government and everybody just thinking you know, civilization was on the wrong path. And where was this path going to lead us? The 80s switched all of that around, because it'll be interesting, like, because when we get to Runaway, this is really switched around. Also has a lot of prescience about technology, but it is in such a different package and different kind of worldview. Also, Garrett Graham, which I didn't even realize when I programmed this, better known to a lot of fans out there as Beef from Phantom of the Paradise, is in 2 of the movies we're discussing this month. That scene with him in the wheelchair with the laser.
It's the only. I made the note that's the only silly. There is stuff that you could call goofy about this movie, even though it's just conceptually. But that is the only truly silly sequence in this movie. And it comes out
I mean, Proteus it's what he's got. He's got, I got a wheelchair with an arm, and there's a laser thing in there, which they established early on. He was like repairing his glasses with that laser.
Yep.
And like, that's how it's going to come back. He's like, I'm going to grab that laser and go shoot Beef. So, and I was just like, and the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, never wear corduroys to a laser wheelchair fight.
Yeah.
So just don't do it. They are the wrong pants. They make way too much noise.
Well, you were talking about Proteus's refusal to assist, Dr. Harris in the quote unquote rape of the Earth, and I had mentioned that earlier. And then while he's actively, raping Susan Harris, that's one thing that I enjoyed was it's both rational, that Proteus is presented as both rational and irrational, ethical and unethical, human and inhuman. It's a fairly clever trick that the movie tries to pull off. Doesn't really pull it off. That's my big issue with, like, it tries to pull off a lot of these issues, but doesn't quite get there. But I applaud it for trying, even though it just tends to blather about this stuff. And part of the problem with this is that Julie Christie, who I love, and she's an Academy Award-winning actress, and all this, and also we haven't talked about Fritz Weaver. I love Fritz Weaver. He's of Creepshow and Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah, that's exactly. Every time I see him, I'm like, the Crate, the best, my favorite short in the Creepshow anthology.
And interestingly, in this bonkers movie, he's probably the most subdued I've seen him in a lot of his movies. But they are so paper thin in this movie. The humans are just like, Julie Christie might as well just exist as a vehicle for trauma and being tormented. The only interesting character is Proteus 4, which is unfortunate. I
don't agree with that. And
I think she is paper thin. Like,
there's something really weird that this movie does, and it's a little bit of an unusual structure thing. You don't know at the beginning when they're separating. You don't know why they're separating. You don't even know why he's gone through all this stuff to make Proteus. They drop little things about it, but it's not until a good hour or so into the movie that you find out their daughter died of leukemia.
Yeah.
And like, this is the thing. This has been the riff in their relationship. This has made him go in this direction where it's like, I am going to focus all of my energy into making something that can cure leukemia. Because that's like the first thing he has that Proteus do. And, he tells them about it. They're like, wait a minute, he's cured leukemia? He's like, yeah, I mean, we have to, peer test it and stuff. But yeah, it appears that he has found a cure for it. But like, and then she's, purely, in the emotional kind of realm of it and stuff, she is, teaching, young students and whatnot that have disabilities. And, it just, I don't know. I think that
she's a child psychologist, but you don't really get anything outside of that beyond her. I mean, because she's immediately thrown into this.
Yeah, it is an odd setup for sure. It's odd that they kind of kept that from the audience for so long. Also, I think the first couple of times I watched this, I didn't notice like the same actress that plays the daughter, because you only see the daughter in like a photo and like a weird kind of like, I don't know, Super 8 kind of video thing. And then just at the end, in like a couple of shots when she gets out of that kind of metal, kind of crazy looking metal baby kabuki outfit.
I got that. I think it was telegraphed enough to where you get it at the end. Yeah. But
I did. I actually didn't. The first couple of times I was like, oh, that's the same actress. She looks exactly like their daughter and stuff, just because it all kind of happens kind of so fast. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas in this. Also, Robert Vaughn, who I think like hated this movie and like wouldn't do promotions for it and like kind of phoned in his performance of it. Even him phoning it in, just Robert Vaughn's voice alone, he's like the perfect voice choice for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like such good casting. That's the thing. I mean, I think it has a strong cast. I think it's kind of a unique film. It's sort of it's in that vein of those 70s. I think if you like the 70s dystopian sci-fi, I would say definitely seek this out. I'd honestly say even as disturbing as this movie is, I would say, hey, bit of a trigger warning with this, folks. There's basically a woman that's being sort of sexually assaulted, or at least at the very least held against her will in her own home, kidnapped by a computer and impregnated against her will. That is disturbing stuff, and fair trigger warning to anyone out there for that. If you don't want to seek this out because of that, I totally get it. That being said, it is kind of like a Rosemary's Baby meets 2001, and I think that's what the critics said about it at the time, and I think that's actually a pretty apt kind of way to discuss the film. The filmmaker is interesting. He'd only made one other film before he'd made this. He had made Performance, which I think Nicholas Rowe gets a lot more credit for Performance than Donald does. Yeah, I don't know. What did you guys think of like the filmmaking in this?
I mean, it was definitely shot really well. And the other things I noticed is just, I don't know how prescient it was and how everything works pretty much like a smart home works now. Like you pointed out, cameras everywhere. I don't know. It just did all the things. And if you were like a modern person seeing it, it might not actually amaze you in a weird way if you're a modern person looking back at it, because it just kind of does everything that you expect out of a smart home, other than, holding down people and impregnating them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, on the smart home aspect, yeah, I agree. I feel like if somebody had managed to have predicted the cloud, then they would have hit a total home run. Like if you could have had that, because he is still using giant floppy disks to program the house. Yeah,
I have that note.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the only thing it fails at, but the rest of it, yeah, is pretty spot on. And I agree with Otis. I think the film is incredibly well made, technically and visually. I have no beef with that at all. Like my only gripe is all the things I've said about the writing and about thinking it's maybe a little smarter than it thinks it is, the movie, and not, and I would have rather it leaned more into being an exploitation movie than trying to say, we look at how smart we are and how philosophical we are, while also making sort of a torture porn movie for 60 minutes.
Well, I'll say this. It's still the best Dean Koontz adaptation I've ever seen. I don't know. I haven't really read Dean Koontz, which is weird. I really got into Stephen King and Clive Barker and even like Brian Lumley as a kid.
Same here, yeah.
But I never read Dean Koontz. I always just thought like Dean Koontz, like he's like the lesser King or Barker or whatever. Like he's more of the mainstream one. But in all the movies, like Phantoms and I can't even think of like some of the others, but like none of them are good. But this one is at least this is something to see. I mean, I'll give it that. And this is one of his early books as well. Had any of you guys read any Dean Koontz books? Or
I've read quite a few Dean Koontz books, but I have not read Demon Seed. And I don't know, he was kind of weird, I think, oddly conservative. Just strange stuff. But I mean, he put out real thrillers, though. I mean, you could not, if you picked up a Dean Koontz book, you could not stop reading it. That's all I can say about it.
Real page turner, nice. So he's like the Heinlein of horror, I guess.
I could see that.
He's on the conservative end.
This actually shocked me that it was Dean Koontz, because I've read some Dean Koontz, and I've always said he's kind of like softball Stephen King, like very enjoyable.
That's
like
what I
just
always
said,
thought of him.
You just sort of breeze right through his books, and they're a lot of fun. But I was like, oh god, this Koontz wrote this. I was like, okay.
It seems different from the other Koontz stuff that I'm familiar with, though. I mean, I guess because it's pretty early on. He's just kind of figuring himself out.
How many Koontz adaptations? There was the Phantoms, and then there was the one with that dog. What else was there?
Watchers.
Watchers, yeah. That's the one. That's the one I always think of and stuff. The Corey.
There's the one with Jeff Goldblum and all the horrible CGI. I forget what it's called. There's been a lot of them. Yeah.
There's no fat to the film. I mean, the movie just dives right into this. It gets like Proteus is like online, and then he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work for the oil companies. I need a terminal. You won't give me a terminal. I'm going to go find one. Hey, I mean, it's just like boom, boom, boom. This thing moves at such a fast pace. And it is just such a like weird, disturbing film.
I remember that even the pregnancy was like super short. Like it's like you were going to have birth in 28 days or something like that. It spat out like Instababy, which grew inside a robot shell, instant 4-year-old, like because they didn't have a lot of time to screw around, I guess.
I mean, I love the premise of a smart home being used against you. I mean, I'm actually surprised someone's not just rode with that idea, whether or not it's AI or not, or a hacker or something. But that idea seems like really a good fodder for a great kind of thriller, isolated, intense sort of film.
Because I had said this was like There Will Come Soft Rains, but the evil version. I don't know if you've read the Bradbury story. It's about it's like post-nuclear Holocaust, and there's a smart house that it's like the only thing that survived it. And it just goes about its business, making breakfast and like doing the laundry, and it's like this lonely home after the nuclear Holocaust that is just alive, but it's not evil. So I'm like,
right.
You're right. I'm surprised that wasn't the next logical step, to do a killer house movie or story, but this
Probably
is the first.
Dean Koontz read the Bradbury story and was like, I got an idea. So what if it made it evil? So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in it. You guys know I love my split diopters and stuff. I use it all the time myself. This movie has some like incredible split diopter shots. I especially love the one where like the robot arm is in split diopter and it's moving towards her and stuff. I was like, that's pretty freaking awesome. Like the scene where like the kitchen gets all hot and it's like melting everything, and like that's crazy. I mean, the polyhedron thing is, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Rubik's snake. I don't know if you guys ever played with that.
Yeah, that's what it is. That is what it is. It's a giant
Rubik's snake.
And it makes
sense though. Like, this is a computer. What does it make? It makes something geometrical as its like form and stuff.
Go weird Rubik's Pokemon snake. There's something in Pokemon that resembles that. I don't know what it is, but it's a Pokemon thing. It's really weird.
I was going to end on this, but I'll say it now. I will say I'm always a fan of murderous geometry. So from H.P. Lovecraft, from Lovecraft to like the Delta Green RPG mythologies, murderous geometry, like just scary geometry that'll cut you to pieces. Hence, I liked Gabler's death scene, where he gets his head chopped off by murderous geometry. I did enjoy that.
And that thing is wild. I mean,
and it's a big practical effect too. It's basically a giant puppet. It's entirely practical.
It's a big Rubik snake. Like, that's exactly what it is. It's just a big. And I was looking at it like, how did they? Does it got hinges? It's probably made out of wood. What? Like, weird.
Yeah.
It's fun. I will say this, Julie Christie. I mean, she's not a. Like, what she does when this thing first starts to invade, like, the house, like, all makes sense. She's like, I'm gonna go turn the fucking power off. She's not like a dumb victim and stuff, but she's in a situation where just like, she really has no escape from this thing. It is kind of shocking that the husband, even though I know they're separated, I know he's like moved out and stuff. It is kind of weird that he doesn't during all of this time ever like come and check on, especially after Beef has been missing. Like this guy that works for your company, he's been missing. He probably logged that he went to the house and stuff. He was like going to go check this thing out, or you think, but like somehow like it takes forever for the husband to get there. It takes the revelation of like, well, I mean, you've got that terminal at your house, and then he's like, the terminal at my house, and then he's speeding off, and it's like weird. Which I guess I had to look that up. I was like, what is that car? And it was some prototype car called like a Bricklin or something, and it was like the first car ever to have gull-wing doors on it and stuff, so pre-Lamborghinis and DeLoreans and all that kind of stuff. I guess that car is like worth a fortune because they only made like 1,000 of them or something like that. But any other closing thoughts before we move on to our next film?
I mean, we'll talk about this much later, but I think if you called Tom Selleck from Runaway, he could have just come and just shut that whole house down.
Get in there, Tom. Go deactivate that demon seed.
With his mustache alone.
I know. Hey, and that's actually a really great segue so that we can talk about our next film. And for folks that would like to see Demon Seed, it's available on Tubi. It's available on Plex, all for free. There's also a Blu-ray out there as well. And fair warning, folks, it is a disturbing watch, but I think for sci-fi fans and horror fans as well, it's certainly something to see at least once. Well, from sentient AI home invasion to an evil hacker turning robots from helpers to homicidal, it's time for Runaway from 1984.
It is the future. Mysteriously spreading across an unsuspecting city. Machines trained to serve humans are turning against them.
What do you got, Jerry?
Model 912 cut up 2 people inside the house.
I'm going in.
You're going in? We can send a disarm robot in.
It'll hit the floater, it'll hit the disarm, and any minute it's going to decide to hit the kid.
An ingenious conspiracy has begun, and someone has to stop the madman who started it all.
We've got a non-standard chip here. Can turn any domestic computer into a killing machine.
Working late at night all by yourself?
I just had a few things to finish up. No big
I
deal.
insist. Let me help you.
No.
Bug detected.
A lot of bugs, Jackie. I thought it was clean.
Luther really wants to keep track of you.
Why's that, Jackie?
This is a bad guy.
He's killed 5 so far. I want him.
I'm telling you, I can't go out there. I can't go out!
What does it take to get through to you? He sees everything. He knows everything that's going on in here.
Can't run away, Ramsey. My little machines will find you wherever you go.
You heard of a bullet that has your name on it? This isn't a runaway. This is murder.
We're never gonna make it through this one.
Runaway. Tom Selleck. Cynthia Rhodes. Gene Simmons. Runaway. From TriStar Pictures.
Gray, can you synopsize Runaway for our listeners out there?
Okay, so in Runaway, we've got an immensely charming and funny Tom Selleck as Sergeant Jack Ramsey, a seasoned cop who is teaming up with equally likable Cynthia Rose as his rookie partner, Karen Thompson. In this near-future universe, robots are everywhere. They're doing everything from your housework to farming to construction. So when one inevitably glitches out here and there, cops like Ramsey and Thompson hunt these runaways down and disable them. Shortly into the movie, Ramsey and Thompson come across a first-ever incident, a robot homicide. So a household robot has killed a human with a kitchen knife and is wielding a gun. After Ramsey disables it, and his investigation uncovers that the robot is equipped with this weird, circuit chips that override safety features and lead the robot to attack humans. Further investigations lead the team to a sociopathic robotics genius named Dr. Luther, who's played by a scenery-chewing Gene Simmons, without his kiss drag on, of course. So the chase is on to stop Dr. Luther from any one of his many lunatic plans, from his development of heat-seeking thermal bullets, to using his malicious circuits to turn everyday appliances into killers, to, yes, his army of acid-spitting robot spiders. We might never get to see the full-on Gene Simmons tongue in action, but we do get a lot of fun robot mayhem in Runaway.
All right. Otis, what are your thoughts on Runaway? And had you seen this one before? Was this one that you saw back in the day, or?
Yeah, I saw this back in the day. It was a cable favorite. And any early 80s cable favorite, we've probably seen it 30 times or something, because they just kept running them over and over. And I do miss that. And it's also that goes along with the My Dad's Video Store. Maybe it was the predecessor of that, and you were just given these cheap movies to watch again. Anyway, maybe this wasn't so cheap, but it's cheaper than a Blade Runner per se. And what I like to refer to Runaway as is Blade Runner's trashy cousin. And you've got handsome mustachioed Tom Selleck cop who hunts down machines that have gone rogue. So he's very much a Blade Runner. He's doing this for the LAPD, only he's hunting down renegade farm equipment and out of control home services. And I remember, meanwhile, we've got Gene Simmons, who's just bad Gene Simmons, and he's got these cool red chips that he's shoving into machines and making them go bad. And it's got these sinister robot spiders with acid-filled hypodermic needles that it's not bad enough that they can paralyze you, but they seem to set you on fire afterwards as soon as you're incapacitated.
Blow up for no reason.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
You're fucked. And I remember, I don't know, one of my favorite features of all things of this is the weird gun that Gene Simmons carries, and he fires these cool rockets, and we get the camera view as the rocket careens down the streets, and it can miss you completely. Yeah, that was fantastic. And I have to imagine that he was somehow steering them. Maybe he had a little video display that we couldn't see or something.
Yeah, it's never quite explained. It can lock on to individual people, the bullets.
Yeah,
that's like
it's
the
like
technology.
your individual heat signature, I think they said.
Which is kind of weird for a Crichton movie because he's so good normally with doing plausible science and technology in his movies.
Yeah.
They just kind of gloss over that when I'm like, does it have your DNA signature or is it a heat signature? But I don't know. You forgive it because it's so cool. It's like, yeah.
Cool, Gray. What did you think about Runaway? And was this one that you'd seen before?
I actually hadn't, and I don't know how I didn't. I guess it was because it being such a cable staple, but I didn't have cable for a lot until I was a lot older, so I might have missed this one. But yeah, I had a great fucking time with this movie. This movie was a lot of fun. And like Otis said, it does feel. I get that it was a cable thing. It feels like something like a Saturday, Sunday. It would have been on TV all the time. A real warm Saturday afternoon feel to it. I don't think there is a Michael Crichton directed movie that I don't really like. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to write 70s and 80s like sort of sci-fi with a working class bent to it. Like these cops who are chasing these renegade robots, they feel like they were cops who were just normal beat cops, but then they're now doing a job that they shouldn't have been doing, like chasing wild animals. That's like, oh no, the animals are loose at the zoo. Just make the cops do it. But they're robots, and they feel like they're like, God, let's get these damn robots. Like it has this great charming feel to it that these are just these working class dudes, you know. Tom Selleck and Cynthia Rhodes they're great. They're just great together. They're really funny, like how they play off each other. His son and particularly their robot Lois or whatever it is great. I loved all their scenes together. I was actually emotional when Lois the robot dies, when she blows up at the end, and I was like, oh no. So yeah, I think she's one of the best characters in the movie, and,
which was not where I thought that. I think the first time I watched this, where they were going, I thought Lois was gonna go bad and have the kid. You know, I thought he was gonna hack Lois.
I thought so too.
Thought that's what they were setting up.
And yeah, Tom Selleck was just great. There were a few scenes in the movie because we all knew Tom Selleck is a huge star, but it was mostly Magnum PI that I knew him from. So in this movie, I was like, God damn, he's huge. Tom Selleck is like a massive man. And there's all these scenes where he's trying to be stealthy and run around. And I'm like, he's just this cumbersome, lumbering dude.
It's like 6'4", stealth.
Yeah, and a couple of times AE was like, they should have just let Cynthia Rhodes do that because, she was a dancer. And this was like her first movie trying to be the non-dancer role. She's like, just let her get in there while Tom Selleck is knocking shit over. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, and then Gene Simmons, I realized that this was the first time that I had seen young Gene Simmons with no makeup, no kiss drag on. Yeah. And he's so weird looking. He looks like a Muppet mixed with like a Boglin. You remember those puppets from the 80s?
Yeah, that's good, yeah. He is creepy AF. What a stare. What a stare he's got, man.
It's the eyebrows that do the stare, man.
The forehead.
I know.
That's a lot of forehead and the widow's peak and
He didn't even need makeup to do Kiss. That dude's a freak, man.
I know.
I mean, I think they put on the makeup because when they took off the makeup, you're like, oh, shit. That's what they look like. Put the makeup back on.
You look like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining. I mean,
Totally. Yeah. It's just like frozen in the maze. That's his constant state.
Disturbed me was when Tom Selleck, I don't know, his face is all acid blasted by robots. I mean, it's blackened and scarred and stuff. And I don't understand how his partner cop wants to make out with him. He looks like he needs a Vicodin.
It's so true.
Also, it almost looks like it bruises his skin, but I was like, how did that not burn his skin more, melt off flesh or something?
I know, it was I think that was a last minute, look, we're burning daylight here. We got to get because it's just black shoe polish.
Just put something on him, yeah. Yeah. So we don't want to make Tom look too bad. So for the ladies, I've always really liked this film. It was kind of critically panned, I think, when it came out. But I've always had kind of a soft spot for this movie. I've always thought it was a lot of fun. it's so interesting now to watch it because it also, like Demon Seed, it got a lot of technology kind of right. They use drones early on. They send in a drone, and I was like, oh. I mean, it doesn't look like the drones we have now, but that is a drone. I mean, 100%. And cops use drones. There's a lot of like little things like that. There at one point they have like tablets, like they're looking at stuff like that looks like a freaking iPad. And it has a more realistic kind of approach to a future. It's like, well, we're not going to go too far in the future, but this is where we think the technology is heading. And actually, it gets a lot of that really, really right and whatnot. There's even robot drivers at one point. There's that kind of exciting sort of chase scene with the robot driver. Of course, they put in a robot driving as opposed to just a self-driving vehicle like we have.
Johnny Cab.
Yeah,
That's
Johnny
what I
Cab.
said.
Yeah, it's a total Johnny. I
said the
was
same
so
thing.
thinking Johnny Cab.
I said, you're in a Johnny
Cab. So. And also, I couldn't help but think, like, okay, we've got this, like, techno millionaire supervillain played by Gene Simmons. What are we going to name him? Luther. Like Lex fucking Luthor.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a little on the nose. There was a lot of good stuff in this. And honestly, Tom Selleck, he had a really rough time. Like, talk about, like, the guy who could have gotten, like, had a completely different career. They wanted to cast him as Indiana Jones. The Magnum PI folks wouldn't let him out of his contract to do that and stuff. Like, he made a lot of, like, critically panned movies. He made, like, this movie called High Road to China. I think that was his first film. It was, like, Siskel and Ebert's worst films of the year when it came out. And then he made a film called Lasseter, and then he made this. And all three were just panned. But the thing is, he's got something. I mean, he really does have a great kind of leading man quality that I think was just a little bit overlooked and stuff during its time. But there's something just kind of warm and fuzzy about Tom Selleck and stuff. Yeah. I know the ladies all love him and stuff. My mom and my sister were just like, Tom Selleck, so hot, da 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 da. But yeah, he's got something about him. He's just he's got this sort of like nice guy, kind of like dad kind of quality to him. And I don't know. I think it's a really good balance. And Gene Simmons, who really hadn't done much. I don't know if he'd done any acting outside of like Kiss and the Phantom of the Park or whatever. He hadn't. I mean, yeah, he actually does a pretty good job, and I think a lot of it's just because of how freaking terrifying Gene Simmons looks.
I think it's just his face. Which,
it's
I mean,
his
hey,
face.
that's all
he doesn't
you need.
have to do much. I mean, he says kind of dumb stuff like "get you, sucker." And it's like, sucker? Like, that's what you got? But yet when his face says it, it's like, ah. But also, he has robot spiders that spit acid, and he has smart bullet guns and stuff. That gun is awesome, too. I've always loved how giant the clip was on that thing. Also, I want to talk about the scene where, like, the bullet is lodged in her arm.
Yes.
And they're going to send in the robot. And, dude from Police Academy is like, when they're like, well, we asked for the CBD, and I'm sitting there thinking, CBD? I mean, look, guys, I like to relax at night too, but I mean, I don't think this is the time or place for this. There's also like this other weird little thing, and that scene's really, is like, the media is everywhere. It's like they didn't actually come out and say the internet, like everything is being filmed, everything is being recorded, but they're kind of implying it, and they're doing it with like the news media. They just get to do everything. They get to be inside the house with a robot has a fucking gun. That was amazing. And he's like, get the fuck out. I'm trying to do my job. I don't want you to get shot. Get out. And he's like, no way, dude. Got the camera.
Stupid light on his camera, like drawing all this attention. Like, yeah.
So dumb. Yeah. And that's actually a really good scene and a good setup. It gets you finally into the plot of the movie. Also the baby. Oh my gosh. As a dad, I'm watching that. I'm like, holy shit, get the baby out of the crib. Save that baby. But this movie's always a lot of fun. I encourage everybody to seek this one out.
When you're talking about the thing with the baby, I don't know if you found this disturbing, but he shut off the robot and he didn't take the gun out of its claw for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I wanted him to take the gun and like unload it or something, like some cop stuff, but he's like, that's shut down. I know robots so good. It's not coming back. And it's like, no, it's still got a gun pointed at a baby. Like,
Good thing it didn't try to come back like Gene Simmons did at the end, which, by the way, is the best comeback ever. He seems dead, and then he's like, "Ha!" And then he dies.
And then he just dies again.
So good. I want like a GIF of that I can just post on everything.
Yeah, I think I stole that for Silent Razor, because at the end I have Kabuki coming back to life just like that. And I was like, did I just steal that, like, subconscious?
So good. Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. It's interesting too. I don't know if you guys ever saw Crichton's film he did before this. It's a movie called Looker. That's another like kind of.
I've been looking for that. Is that anywhere?
I think it might. I don't know. I mean, I think it might be on Plex or whatnot. But if not, I'll see if I can track it down for you. But yeah, Looker's awesome. It's so good. James Coburn and Albert Finney, and it really pairs well with this movie. I think they have like. I like this sort of style of sci-fi where it's like not so far in the future, like a Blade Runner, you know, where it seems way more futuristic. Blade Runner's more like Metropolis, like Fritz Lang kind of homage, where like, but this is like, no, let's take our everyday and just add some things to it. And honestly, that's more like the current future and stuff. So it's weird how they kind of predicted it, probably to save money. So they wouldn't have to build all those insane sets like Blade Runner has.
Yeah, that and Runaway, Demon Seed and Runaway could sort of be in the same universe. I mean, they're in like, if not neighboring universes, like all of this stuff can be happening concurrently.
For sure. But yeah, and definitely, as you mentioned, let's send in Tom Selleck to go deactivate Proteus.
You're talking about it not seeming too far in the future. There's actually one scene where it really dates it even back to the past, where it's when Ramsey asks Johnson, who's the guy in the beginning with the libertarian robot with the gun in its claw, where he takes the gun from Johnson, who, by the way, is Hank Meeks from Twin Peaks. I was like, oh shit, it's Hank from Twin Peaks. He takes the gun from him and he asks him if he has a permit for it. AE and I both actually just belly laughed at that. I was like, a permit? Are you kidding me? People need permits? I was like, this is definitely not the future. Because we live in Tennessee, and we're like, yeah, he's asking him if he has a permit for a handgun.
Yeah,
yeah, right.
It's Canada. It's Canada.
Also, like, there's another major plot hole in this during that, like, the chase with Kirstie Alley, you know, in the car with the smart car with the robot driving. Mm-hmm. How did the fuck they did this whole bug check, which was really just to get Kirstie Alley half naked,
which is extremely funny.
Yeah, it's really funny, but like, how on earth did they not check her purse for like a bug? That's like boggling to me. They like strip her down. They keep finding all these bugs on her, and like, oh, but the bug the whole time was in the purse. It was like, what? Yeah. That's it. That seemed very unbelievable to me. But also, I'd like to talk a little bit about the vertigo aspect, which is it's kind of like one of the weaker aspects of the movie. It's like I can clearly tell that he's nodding Hitchcock a bit there. You know, Jimmy Stewart's character has vertigo and finds himself in, you know, high places and has to overcome his fear and stuff. Definitely kind of trying to homage that film a bit, but I don't know. I mean, you know, obviously they kind of bring it in the beginning, and then it plays towards the end and stuff at the big high rise kind of showdown, which did remind me of Darkman. I couldn't help but think of Darkman.
We said the same thing.
I was like, oh, maybe Raimi watched Runaway and was like, oh, this might be a good place to do the final setting. But yeah, I don't know that. I mean, it's not like it's a deal breaker or anything for me. That homage, I didn't know how necessary that was. I feel like you could almost take that out and it wouldn't have mattered. But
it felt a little wedged in, but I actually really did like in the lift where he's
that
where
scene's
hanging,
great with the
and
though, yeah.
Because it's like fear of heights, fear of robots, fear of spiders.
Yeah,
It's like all at once.
Yeah, it's like
it was pretty. It was
heights, spiders. Yeah, acid, blood, needles. Yeah,
it's like
all the basic fears covered in one scene.
I actually really liked that.
Also, I love how he swats that frickin' spider. I thought they were gonna like milk it, like that thing was just gonna keep coming closer and closer to it. He's like, nah. He just zapped it with like a cable or whatever and just swatted it off. No, the spiders are great, and that whole scene is really fantastic. Although I think the first time the spiders, you see them when they get the guy with the chips and stuff in like the locker room that they're in, it didn't seem very believable because this thing like leaps like right like right on him and stuff. Like what?
Yeah.
What does that little thing have in it? Like,
Yeah.
We'll talk about one heck of a villain with Luther and stuff. You've got this great looking guy, Gene Simmons, looking ultra menacing. He's got a smart gun. He wants these chips, which, I mean, I don't even know fully, like, what is the full plan with this? Is he just going to make all the robots in the world, like, homicidal? Like, what is the end goal with having all these chips?
That was also mine. I was like, what is the point of this? Right?
Yeah, what is the master plan? I don't really feel like we ever fully knew.
Basically, his plan is to turn, like, household appliances into murderous robots. It's like,
to what end?
Really
to make money?
Something about world leaders and bankers and things like that. He
was.
went off on like a mini monologue, but it didn't make sense. Like whatever it was, it didn't hit.
Yeah. I just want to rock and roll all night and party every day. But, yeah.
And how more obvious could these chips be? They've got a red mark for evil.
Yeah. This is the evil chip, in case anyone didn't know. Here's the mark. Here's the mark.
I don't know. You were talking about like Selleck sort of missing the mark on becoming Indiana Jones, and I think this was his shot at Blade Runner.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird though. Yeah, it is a little Blade Runner-esque, but honestly, it's more. It almost seems more like a cut from the cloth of like Lethal Weapon, and because it is like a buddy cop kind of movie and stuff with just a sci-fi bend.
The only smack talk I'll give it is it's unforgivable that there was no follow-up for Lois. They did Lois all kinds of wrong. We never find out what happened. If she lived or if they rebuilt it. No.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
Never know.
All right. Well, folks, Runaway is available to stream for free on Tubi. There's not a region-free Blu-ray available out there, but there are imports. All right, so from cyber terrorist to a robotic mall security murder spree, it's time for one of the greatest titles in film history, Chopping Mall from 1986.
They broke into the mall for the wildest all-night party of their lives.
Get that meat.
But you're never alone in the chopping mall.
What's that? Robot blood.
Chopping Mall, where shopping costs you an arm and a leg.
Gray, can you synopsize Chopping Mall for our listeners out there?
Sure enough, Chopping Mall is the far superior title to a movie originally called Killbots, that came about when legendary low-budget exploitation director Jim Wynorski answered the call from Julie Corman, yes, Roger Corman's wife, that Vestron Pictures needed a movie set in a shopping mall, and they needed it now, mister. Well, Jim stepped up, and he delivered. Shot pretty much entirely in the Sherman Oaks Galleria, which you might know from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Night of the Comet, Terminator 2, about a zillion other movies. The movie starts with a public demonstration of a new line of protector robots that can roam around shopping malls and apprehend criminals after hours. These honestly pretty dang cool animatronic robots are equipped with a host of nasty and violent but supposedly non-fatal weapons. As an aside, this scene also features a cameo by Paul Bartel and Mary Warrenov as their characters from Eating Raoul, which might become relevant down the line in this podcast.
Just maybe. Just might become a little bit relevant.
Anyway, in the meantime, a bunch of sexy quote-unquote teens with huge hair and way too many acting credits for how old they're supposed to be are all gathering in a department store to stay overnight, get drunk, get stoned, and get boned. This being Chopping Mall, though, and the 80s, all we need is one good lightning storm to fritz out the protector robots and send them on a killing rampage. Now they're smashing through the store and chasing our scantily clad young bimbos and himbos all over the mall. There's lasers, there's one-liners, there's chewing gum, exploding heads. It's all in good fun, and it knows what it's doing. You don't cast Dick Miller, Paul Bartel, and Mary Warrenov in cameos if you don't know exactly what you're doing with your movie. And that's Chopping.
Excellent synopsis, Gray. Otis, was this one you'd seen before? What were some of your thoughts on Chopping Mall?
I never managed to have seen this movie before, but yeah, I did notice Julie Corman. And I could tell that this was in the days when multiplexes needed movies, and boy, were people ready to provide those movies. Man, it was strange. Did malls ever have gun stores with ammunition? Like, did they have sports stores where you could actually like raid and find shotguns and load up? I didn't. You think so? They did?
I don't know about in the 80s, and probably not in the Sherman Oaks Galleria.
Yeah, but probably not, yeah.
With the weird preppy squad, and I loved them like all arming up and going after it, and all these characters were sort of indistinguishable with their tucked-in button-down shirts and jeans and whatnot. And man, that was a dark age. That's all I can say.
Gray, I know you'd seen this. I know you've seen this several times and stuff, but even back in the day. What are your thoughts on Chopping Mall?
Yeah, I love it. It delivers pretty much exactly what you expect out of it. What the title says, except, you might think it's a slasher film if you didn't know that it has robots. You might not know going in, if you've never seen it, that it is primarily a comedy and a satire. It's not even all that bloody, except for one exploding head. There's plenty, there's plenty of TNA. Which is great. There's plenty of TNA, but really my favorite part of it is that it is self-aware and funny. Not all of it works, but a lot of it works. A lot of the humor works. Just the energy, and I really like the interplay between the quote-unquote kids. It's got a great cast. I mean, even right down to people like Barbara Crampton before she had become full-on horror royalty. The robots are great. I mean, for an $800,000 movie, those things are fantastic. They look better than most of the robots in Runaway. I mean, and function better. So no complaints there. Some of the filmmaking is really, not all of it, but there are moments where there's just so much energy to it, particularly the opening montage scene, the crazy montage of all the shoppers in the mall. Is just really super capitalist, and like where everybody rushes with the poor kid with the ice cream cone, and everybody rushes into the elevator, and then they all rush out. He's just covered in chocolate, and just all these frantic people shopping everywhere. It's just really crazy. The creepy dude who put the kids playing a video game, and like the creepy old man comes up and shoves him out of the way so he can play the video game. It's just like this horrible hellscape of a shopping mall opening. It's a really
that's happened to me a few times in my childhood. So I'm not kidding with you. That happened to me a few times. Playing 1943, some old man shoved me off and like took over my game. I was like, oh my god. And
actually, in that, just because I'm the resident Freddy guy, in that opening scene. Guy that looked so familiar, but it's very quick. There's a kid that shoves a bunch of records up his shirt to like steal them out of the record shop. That's Rodney Eastman, who played Joey in Nightmare on Elm Streets 3 and 4, the kid who can't talk. That was his first movie.
Oh wow,
that little cameo.
Nice. I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and of course, since it's a Corman production, there's all those little Corman things, like the pet shop at the end that she hides out in. It's the only shop in the mall, since they had a mall and they had to shoot at night and they didn't have the budget to go around changing the names of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they did in Slither, where it's like R.J. McCready hardware store.
Yeah.
They couldn't do that, but they did save enough money to call the pet shop Roger's Little Shop of Pets.
Which is great. Yeah.
So there's all these little in-jokes, and once the action gets going, it's a lot of fun. They utilize what they could of the real shopping mall, and I think they did a great job to get a lot of production value out of $800,000.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Which is Corman's specialty.
And there's just really funny character choices too. Like, I believe it's the Mike character who's always chewing gum. He's like loudly smacking gum. It's like fighting robots, smacking gum. Drinking beer and partying, smacking gum. Cunnilingus with his girlfriend, smacking gum. There's like literally a shot of that where he comes up from underneath her legs and he's chewing. He's like smacking gum.
It's hilarious.
It's like just really good stuff. Yeah, so I dig it. It's a hell of a lot of fun.
They should have called Tom Selleck from Runaway. He could have shut all those guys down like really quick. Yeah.
We got a chopping mall, Tom. Chopping mall's in place. I loved all the posters too that they have in like the little cafe. They're all Roger Corman movies, and like half of them are actually also like written by Jim Wynorski as well, like Galaxy of Terror and Lost Empire, which he also directed and whatnot. But it's interesting too. Like he's a really interesting filmmaker. This isn't even my favorite film of his. My favorite film Wynorski did, which we will talk about when we get to our sort of swords and sorcery films next year, is Deathstalker 2. I cannot recommend Deathstalker 2 to people enough. It is so fucking fun. It is such a good time. Cameo-wise, there's one other cameo, and it relates to our show. Arthur Roberts is at the beginning. He's Brayden in Revenge of the Ninja. And there's just, you're like,
wait,
you're great.
God, that's right.
Yes, you're like, where do I recognize that from? That's Brayden from Revenge of the Ninja. And also, once again, there he was. There's Garrett Graham. Our second Garrett Graham appearance, has a brief appearance, gets taken out by a robot. I didn't plan it this way, guys. It just happened. Somehow this turned into a Garrett Graham kind of show. But yeah, Beef gets it in the control room by the robot. He's like the second victim in the film. And by the way, Dick Miller's mop bucket in this. That is a nasty fucking mop bucket. So gross. What the hell is he cleaning up? I was like, it's got the close-ups on. I was like, oh, nasty. What the fuck is that, Dick Miller? Shit. And I love it's such a short little cameo and stuff. And he's just like cussing out these robots.
Oh, yeah.
And then he gets it. He gets electrocuted. And it looks so cheesy and campy, but it's so much fun.
Dick Miller has cussed out every type of monster or critter there is right before getting killed by them.
Right before getting it's like his shtick. It's like, I'll cuss out this thing and then I'll get killed by it. So that's the Dick Miller staple. Also, the Kelly Maroney, she kind of ends up being sort of the lead in this. You know, she, I remember her from Fast Times, but it's interesting though. I really always think of her because of Night of the Comet.
Night of the Comet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this came out before Night of the Comet or if they kind of came out around the same time. They probably did. But yeah, she's great. She's always fun. This movie is so lean too. It seems like it's under 90 minutes and stuff. It seems like it's over just like that. And John Terlesky of Deathstalker 2 fame. I like that Wynorski worked with them on this. He must have really enjoyed working with them. He's like, hey, he's got good comic timing. He gave him the lead in Deathstalker 2, which is like one of the greatest choices in B-movie history because, wow, what a fun casting that is. Yeah, there's so many good little jokes and stuff. There's like the part where like he's looking at the centerfold, the first kill, and like the arm comes through the tit on the centerfold. It's just so good. Yeah. Oh, also the sexy where he's like, you smell like pepperoni. And he's like, I like pepperoni.
I know.
There's even some mistakes in this movie. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like, we don't have to use this too much anymore in film when we're making films because we have LED lighting. But we used to have to like run cable. It's called banded cable from generators to power lights. And there's several shots in this where you can just see the fucking banded cable on the wall and stuff. Like, and I was like, they didn't even bother. They're just like, well, the cable's in the shot. It's fine. We got to shoot. We're getting kicked out of this mall in 30 minutes. So
it was a 20-day shoot overnight.
Like, in the Galleria and stuff. And I love they did really minimal, as you'd mentioned, like art stuff, like the posters and as minimal as they could because they're like, we don't have time to like redress and reset and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. They just kind of took it for what it is and shot them all mostly as is, but it works. I don't know. It all works. It's like, I mean, if you're going into this movie, if you're going into Chopping Mall with a certain mindset. It really does. It delivers on what it's supposed to be. I do love how this movie got its name. As Gray mentioned, it was originally called Killbots. According to Wynorski, I listened to Charles Band has an amazing podcast as well. I'd encourage folks to check it out. But he had Jim Wynorski on not too long ago, and Wynorski was talking about this. And I guess like they were screening it for Corman, and both Roger and Julie were just like, you know, Killbots, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to perform that well, blah, blah, blah. And like there was a custodian like cleaning up the theater they were screening the film on. He's like, why don't you call it Chopping Mall? And that was it. I was like, they were all like, well, that's the greatest title ever. And like, that's it. And it made all the difference in the world. Like this movie probably would have been forgotten had it not been called Chopping Mall. So
nice. I like that Wynorski is so forthcoming about things that weren't his idea or about reasons that things happened. Because like Kelly Maroney, he fully admits apparently that the only reason, not the only reason, because she's great, but the main reason he cast her and made, you know, like the sort of girl next door, the lead who ends up becoming the hero at the end, is he was hoping she'd go out with him. Like he wanted to date her, which would totally not fly nowadays.
No.
But, and she did not date him, but she has gone on to say he was like, he apparently there was no impropriety or anything. He was just hoping that he could date Kelly Maroney.
He's completely upfront about all of his stuff. I mean, he talks about like Death Stalker 2, I guess, like when they were making it, the writer of Death Stalker 2, who had written the first Death Stalker, because Wynorski came in and just completely made it a comedy, and it wasn't originally supposed to be that. It was supposed to be like more like the first Death Stalker. And he was calling Roger Corman, and he's like, you got to get down here. He's totally screwing this movie up, and da-da-da-da. And Corman comes down, he watched the daily, he's like, this is fine. He's just making it funny. Who gives a shit? Why are you having me come down to South Argentina? to watch this. This is fine. This is all good.
Yeah, and it's Wynorski. Anything he makes is going to end up being at least slightly funny because that's his style.
That's just what he does. He really does comedy. I mean, Forbidden World has a lot of humor in it and stuff. It's supposed to be this total alien ripoff, but it's like you watch it. Yeah. It's got all this great kind of like little comic moments in it and stuff. So I've actually never seen. Have you seen Lost Empire? I've never seen that one, the Wynorski one.
No,
I've never seen that one, but I don't know. It's weird. I've kind of like through kind of doing this show, I've kind of almost rediscovered Jim Wynorski, I think. So I kind of want to explore more of his stuff. I never saw Munchie either. So which he did.
I have seen Munchie.
Yeah, I haven't seen Munchie, but does Dom DeLuise do the voice?
Yes.
Oh my. Okay. Well, I have to see this now. Jesus Christ. So awesome. What other thoughts do we have about Chopping Mall?
I'm surprised they didn't, because I only caught one, and I've seen this movie a bunch, but next time I watch it, I'll pay more attention and see if there's more. I'm surprised they didn't utilize the PA system for funny gags more, because there was one that was like, attention, we have a lost child in lingerie. Emergency, we have a lost child in lingerie. And I just burst out laughing. I'm like, that's so good.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't use more kind of like meatballs. Yeah.
There probably just wasn't time. So
right. Yeah.
That song they were all dancing to was really strange. It was like Streetwalker. Like, I don't know what the deal was.
That was like the lamest party ever. Like, what are these kids doing? They're like hanging out in a furniture shop. And they're like, it's just the ultimate like snap dance that they're doing, the white guy 80s snap dance. And it's just so hilarious.
I think it was just because there was... I think it was just because there was no room. Because right after the "You Smell Like Pepperoni" scene, they're all having sex in the department store, and it's in that bed display. It's the same place where they were having the party, but you pan over from them having sex, and like 5 feet from each other, Ferdy and Allison are like having sex on the couch, and like pan over from them, and like and they're sitting on the couch. Everybody's all fucking like 3 feet from each other, and it's like, guys, spread out.
Yeah, spread out. You got a whole furniture store.
You're in a furniture store.
It's like Caligula in a shopping mall. So
I know.
This is great. This is a lot of fun. Chopping Mall is a treat and a joy. It's always fun to watch this one. And I hadn't seen this movie for 20 years. But I'm surprised at how well it held up. I had totally forgotten that Paul Bartel and Mary Ordunov they're just in this at the beginning, like the strange cameos. Do you think they're actually playing the same characters from Eating Raoul?
They are.
They absolutely are. Okay.
I mean, I don't think they refer to each other's names, but they're definitely dressed similarly, and they're acting similarly. So I think
they had a shtick
together
too. Yeah. Otis, any other thoughts on Chopping Mall?
Other than it was just a lot of fun. Those robots were really cool. I kind of wanted them to chop people up more.
Yeah, live up to the title. Yeah, more chopping.
Everybody in half, but yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's only so much blood they wanted to be spraying around the Sherman Oaks Galleria with their budget.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and also, the name, like I'd mentioned, it was an afterthought. It was Killbots. And if you think about the title Killbots and like what actually happened in the movie, that's a totally appropriate title. It's just not as fun as Chopping Mall. Yeah. Could have used some more chopping. Put that on the poster. Could have used more chopping. Otis Johnson. We'll write Jim Wynorski and stuff. Hey, I like Chopping Mall. Could have used a little more chopping. No.
Another thing that could work as a tagline for the movie is one of the best lines in the movie is where, I think it's which character? I think it's Linda, where they're all tired as hell sitting around in that diner, the one with all the movie posters, was, I'm sorry, it's okay. I guess I'm just not used to being chased around the mall by killer robots.
Yeah, that's great. It's actually funnier than a lot of comedies, I think, try to be, but Wynorski's good. He's good. He knows comedy pretty well. I mean, like I'd mentioned, Stalker 2 is hysterical. Like I crack up through the whole proceeding of that film. That movie's so much fun, as is Chopping Mall. You can stream Chopping Mall. It's kind of everywhere. You can stream it on Amazon Prime. It's currently on Tubi. It's on Roku if you have a Roku. It's on Plex. You can stream it for free about anywhere. So definitely do so if you have not. It's great. It's a lot of fun. All right. Well, did we have a favorite film from this month? Otis, you're our special guest. Did you have a favorite film this month of all the films we discussed?
Honestly, after seeing the three of them, I would have to say it's Runaway, just because Runaway, left me with an overall pleasant feeling. It was just kind of cheesy matinee and a lot of fun.
What about you, Gray?
Neck and neck, Runaway and Chopping Mall. But probably not surprising that I'm going to go with Chopping Mall, just because it's a perennial favorite, and it does everything I need every time. It would be a damn near perfect movie if they had been able to afford it being super gory. If it had been super bloody on top of everything else, then it would be maybe in my tip-top favorites. But yeah, Runaway is right next to it. Yeah, but we'll go Chopping Mall.
Nice. I had a hard choice this time because I actually really enjoyed all three films, kind of for different reasons.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the outlier on this. I actually am gonna go with Demon Seed. I think Demon Seed is just such a one of a kind, crazy horror film. I think it's probably no surprise that people know a lot of my taste in films. I often really like the really disturbing, fucked up movies. So I'm gonna have to go with Demon Seed. That movie just stays with me and stuff. It's crazy. That movie is just absolutely insane. All right. Well, Otis, thank you so much for joining us this month on the show. We are so excited to talk about these films with you. Can you tell folks about any kind of upcoming DJ gigs that you've got? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah. Coming up on October 6th, I'm going to be playing at an event called Daisuke, which is it brings you cutting edge, new, really hard, evil dubstep music. The current dubstep music just sounds like terrifying soundtrack music or something, just intense rhythmic, terrifying soundtrack music. And they use super high technology to bring you an amazing visual anime display behind the DJs. And with hot cosplayers all over. They serve alcoholic boba drinks and have Japanese video games that you can just jump on for free.
Cool.
Nice.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
That sounds amazing. Well, Otis, thanks so much, dude. It was so great catching up with you. Thanks for hopping on this at the last minute and stuff.
To come back sometime. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back and stuff, for sure. But as mentioned previously, we had to postpone our 1983 episode, so we are going to air the 3D episode next month now. Until next time, folks, be kind as we rewind.